Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Catholic Talk Show. We got a good show for you today. We're going to be talking about movies that every Catholic should watch.
Yeah, there's a lot of really great movies that we're going to talk about, movies about historical figures, movies about actual saints and apostles, and movies that you might not expect to be on a list of best Catholic movies.
So get some popcorn, kick back, relax, and let the show begin.
All right, guys, good to be back with you in the studio. Father Rich, Ryan, how you guys doing?
Good, how you guys doing?
You Catholic Studios represent. This is great. I love movies. I love watching movies, and being in LA for a little while, San Diego, studying for an MBA in executive production of movies. Obviously, this is a fascination of mine, so I'm excited to find out which ones we're going to be talking about.
Whatever, man. You remember movies like from a long ago, and you start saying them, and then I'm like, what? Like, what movie is that? Like, I know you're talking about a movie.
Go to the movies a lot?
Not as much as I did in years past, but now with Netflix and Prime Video, I mean, it's just right there at your thumb, and you just kind of click and watch whenever you can. And, that's typically what I'll do. I'll watch like a quarter of a movie, return to it, whenever I have some free time and just kind of digest some good stuff. I think it's a great art form. Motion pictures is really a wonderful thing to kind of digest and really experience the artistic expression of the artist. So I love it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So before we get into all the best Catholic movies, why don't you tell everybody where they can follow us, where they can find us, and where they can get more engaged?
So definitely connect with us at www.catholictalkshow.com. Certainly all of our social media platforms from Facebook to Twitter and Instagram, as well as supporting us in the Patreon app. So patreon.com/The Catholic Talk Show, ensuring that this show may continue to advance and continue to be successful with your help. So we thank you so much.
All right.
So the movies, man. Take us to the movies, Ryan Shield.
Just so you guys know, I haven't been in a movie theater in a long time.
Yeah, I know their
almost
revenue streams have been going down over the years. They try all these different things to kind of have memberships to kind of drive traffic into movie theaters. But I think it is becoming so accessible through tablets and phones, and the privacy of your own home. It's kind of more of a rarity now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't really think of the last time I went to the movie, the actual movie theater.
Yeah.
Although I miss that experience.
Mm-hmm. The smell.
Yeah, the smell, the look of it. It's more exciting than just sitting on your couch and watching a movie.
And it's also communal in the sense of seeing the people's reactions, hearing their reactions, and watching a movie with
them
people
on their phones and stuff. Yeah, that's great.
The glowing screen in front of you. There's a kid kicking your seat.
Now, when I was a kid, we still had drive-in movie theaters around. And those were awesome, right? And, they back then, they wouldn't show new movies. They'd just show like Disney or whatever. And I remember my dad had this big old van and there's 5 of us kids and we didn't have a lot of money. So he'd be like, okay, kids, 3 of you hide in book bags or in
book bags
or whatever.
We used to fit our little brother in a book bag and
family of leprechauns.
Sleeping bags.
Sleeping bags, there we go.
And then my mom and dad were like, nope. 2 adults, 1 kid. The 4 of us were like, ha, suckers, watching movies.
That's great, man.
Yeah, it's pretty good stuff. So I think the first movie that we should talk about, and this is probably the biggest Christian Catholic film of all time.
Everybody knows.
Everyone knows it.
Yeah.
But if you haven't watched it, if you haven't gotten around to watch it,
you got to do it.
You got to do it. And that's The Passion of the Christ.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
It's just such an expertly crafted movie. The care and level of put into the historicity of it all, the acting, the cinematography, really is a masterful piece of motion film.
And the grace that is in the production of the movie is just a sign. There's so many things that occurred during the filming of that movie that were pretty amazing. Remember that guy we had on the show, Jonathan Rumi?
Yeah.
The guy that taught him Aramaic was the, which he so beautifully said, the Our Father on one of our shows. The guy that taught him that is I believe he's a priest at Loyola in California. He was the guy that was with Mel Gibson that kind of trained him on
the Aramaic of the film. So the film is actually all spoken in Aramaic and Latin, and maybe some Greek, but I know it's just Latin and Aramaic. And for a film to have that much money, to be a foreign language film and to make that much money, it was really kind of unparalleled in cinematography.
Subtitles.
And it's a lifetime accomplishment for Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
And that type of a film to reach so many audiences around the world, for it to be mainstream like that was absolutely impressive. And now he's got in production a secondary, like kind of a follow up to that as well.
Really?
Passion of the Christ 2 Electric Boogaloo.
That is definitely
Dude, I
not
can't wait to
the
see
title,
that.
No. There's been talk about it for years, but I don't think it's really getting off the ground. They keep talking about it because it made so much money and there's so much impetus to make a sequel to it, but we'll see. I don't believe it.
But I think it's definitely moving in that direction. I wouldn't be surprised if we see something. But speaking of like all of the testimonies that were coming out of that experience of producing, I've spent hours listening to like Jim Caviezel talk about his experience on YouTube and being struck by lightning and the testimonial value of what he was providing to all these different communities and churches and schools and universities, just sharing the testimony of the production of that film. So it bore a lot of fruit.
Right. He had a big, massive conversion, not
like a revert, like almost like a
just a metanoia,
Yeah.
you know, and that's pretty amazing.
It really is.
But the film itself, you know, like I went to Jerusalem. I walked the Via Dolorosa with my wife on our 10th anniversary. The Gethsemane was very moving. Like all this was just in a very small space, right? Like you pray the rosary, you kind of meditate on this and grow closer to our Lord. And, you know, you're looking at like actually where it occurred and all these things that happened to him and the spatial aspect of it. It was amazing to see how really tight and close it was. I mean, obviously you're not going to, you know, you look at the movie, you think he walked up, you know, this, you know, massive mountain and things like that. But that was one of the things that struck me is it's just like kind of like being drawn into the reality of it, right? Like the reality of it. And so this movie for me was like I was drawn to the reality of the crucifixion, the passion and the crucifixion in a way that, you know, meditation could have never.
Yeah,
you know,
the scene where Jesus falls on the Via Dolorosa and Mary sees him fall, and then it flashes back to her when he was a kid, and Mary sees, you know, the young boy Jesus falling, and the parallel between that is, I think, maybe the most poignant graphic representation I've ever seen of the Dolores of Our Lady. It was just that never leaves you once you see that.
And the mothers that see their children suffer too. You know, I mean,
I don't think there was a dry eye in any theater around the world watching that. Even still, as many times as I've watched it, that makes me choke up every time that I see it.
You know, and there was a lot of conversions on the set of that. A lot of people went into that.
true.
And I mean, you know, Father Bartunek, from Legionnaires, and so he was actually on the set of the film. He was consulting on it. And the guy who played Judas, Luca Leonelli, right? He played Judas in the film. Yeah. And going into the film, he was a self-professed angry atheist. And by the end of the film, he asked Father Bartunek to baptize him and hear his confession. He baptized his family.
There were several people that were baptized on that set.
That is absolutely beautiful. But talking about the film experience, going into the movie theater and having an experience, when I first saw that beautiful film in the theater in Ormond Beach next to Daytona Beach, I'll never forget it to the day I die because it was absolutely disturbing. I was sitting up top, which is always my favorite place to sit in a theater. And right in front of me, you know how people like sneak things into a theater? Like my dad used to sneak in like Three's Musketeers and candy and stuff into the theater. Well, this person pulled out a bag and reaches into the bag, and you know that opening scene of the Passion of the Christ where it's like intense music, and then you have that quote from Scripture, he was wounded for our iniquities. Right then, this person pulled out this like peach or nectarine, and then went into the nectarine like... It was the most disturbing thing I've ever experienced in a theater ever.
I mean, if anybody brings a nectarine to a movie, come on.
Oh, it's just, I mean, truly. But those scenes of evil
Yeah.
that are depicted in that movie was like struck you like that too, and it was really
like a nectarine to
it
the stomach.
struck me like a nectarine.
Wow.
But like that sound was so disturbing, and those images of evil were so disturbing in that movie. It just remains with you, like you said, more powerfully with the dolors of Mary, the suffering of Mary, how that kind of mars into your soul and your heart. Like that is for sure a part of it. But like also those images of evil, like sliding in, you seen the devil sliding in behind the community as Jesus is being led the Via Crucis and suffering and just kind of slithering by, kind of a thing.
I thought about the Eurythmics when I saw that lady. Sweet dreams.
It was pretty creepy.
Creepy.
It was one of the more creepy.
Depictions.
But one of the things is like it burns something in your soul. Like when I pray the rosary, like I go back to that movie all the time, like all the impressions that I got from that, watching it several times.
For sure.
I can't wait till my kids get old enough to where it's appropriate, to watch, because the gruesome nature that and that's why I like Pope St. John Paul II's cross. Like his papal cross was like, it was pretty dirty, And
I love that. And I love the Spanish tradition of the crucifixion scene because it is so graphic. And I want to pray with a graphic cross. Currently I have a cross in my sanctuary at John Paul II in Northeast Florida. And there's like a little drop of blood on his side and barely any blood on any of the other wounds. Yeah. And when I look at it, I mean, it's just such like a pasty kind of, we don't want to see the suffering per se.
Well, I think the movie brought the reality of it out.
The reality of it is intense.
And that reality is not like in the history of the Christian tradition, that reality has never been brought forth so, like you said, pungently in that particular movie, So I think it accomplished something in Christianity that will stay with it for a long time, not just when it was released, but it'll stay with it for a long time.
Right, so go watch it.
There was a movie that I got a hold of after my conversion or reversion when I was in my 20s and I started reading the scriptures and my life was changing overnight. I went to my grandmother's house and I scooped up every type of Catholic movie I could get a hold of, like The Shoes of the Fisherman and The Cardinal, and one of them was on the Blessed Mother. So I scooped that up and I watched that probably like 6 or 7 times and wept because I was witnessing what Jesus did and accomplished. And for the first time, like it was really transmitting into my heart and my soul. And it was entitled, it was like a low budget film and it was on the Blessed Mother. And you know who played Jesus? It was Christian Bale of all people.
Oh,
Yeah. And you never see it in any of his reels or like what he's done or accomplished. And he was older because I mean he was in Newsies. I mean he's been in films like from the time he was like a little kid.
Right.
But this was definitely one of those films that touched my heart and really changed my life. Another one was on St. Francis that was done by an Italian company.
Don't be giving away all the best movies.
Did I give away any of them?
No.
Okay.
Is that the Man of All Seasons? No. The one about Pope Francis.
Oh, the one about Pope Francis. Oh no, Saint Francis.
Saint Francis.
Saint Francis. It was.
It wasn't brother.
It wasn't brother. No, I saw that
moon.
one. That was kind of weird. That was like straight out of the 70s and a little strange.
That's like.
I did watch it though. There was benefit to it. It retained some good.
Went good with shrooms. I don't know.
St. Francis superstar.
No, the one on St. Francis was done by the Italian company that really, they produced phenomenal movies on saints. Another one was on Saint Rita, who became a patroness of mine all throughout my discernment of priesthood because I was affiliated on May 22nd of 2006, which was her feast day. So I gave her my discernment and she's walked with me ever since, which is awesome intercessor. But the one on St. Francis, after watching that, I went into my closet and I literally grabbed everything that I had and owned, all of my gold chains, all of my, all of my movies and everything.
And
I just took it all,
CDs.
All of my rap CDs and I trashed those and I gave everything away, dude.
He made a mixtape for the Blessed Virgin Mary after that. After he threw all that stuff out, he made a mixtape for her.
Not gonna lie, I wrote a lot of raps like from Tupac, and I changed the lyrics to like more Catholic stuff.
Do you want us to cut that out?
Why? It's the truth, dude. It's the truth. No, because I mean, when I went through my conversion experience, it was like everything that I was experiencing culturally at that time was just rooted in the world. It wasn't rooted in Christ. So I was seeking like, how do we redeem everything that I've lived for the past, 20 years of my life? How do we redeem it? Because there were good elements. I mean, like I look at what I was doing at that period of time, is just so pure coming out of prayer and my encounter with Jesus that, I was definitely writing raps over lyrics and beats that I listened to for years.
You were doing rap battles.
I was doing rap battles, man.
All right, so
Let's
get back in.
So what movie? What's the next movie?
So another one I think
Give us a
everyone should see
movie.
is For Greater Glory.
Oh man,
It's the story of the Cristeros.
Yeah, the Cristeros.
War.
Viva Cristo Rey.
Yeah, I mean, it had a great cast. It had Andy Garcia.
Yeah, Andy Garcia killed it. He did a great job.
Oscar Isaac, who's in Star Wars now. It had can't remember the guy.
Was that the Irish priest? He played the Irish priest?
No, that's
He's a famous actor, whoever that guy.
I can't remember. Peter O'Toole.
Yeah, Peter O'Toole.
Peter O'Toole, that's what it was, yeah.
Ruben Blades, who's on, I think he was on like Walking Dead and stuff, but he plays
Walking Dead.
But he's a great actor. He plays
another great Catholic movie. Is
no, it's not really. No, he actually plays
on another show.
President Plutarco Calles, right?
Okay.
And he's just really a very excellent actor. And so for people who don't know, the Cristeros War was in 1920, early mid-20s. A new president was elected in Mexico, and he passed very strict anti-clerical laws throughout the country. I mean, he was shutting down churches. Churches were getting locked down. The priests were getting murdered. They were expelling priests. I mean, the Mexican government was basically completely extricating the Catholic Church from society.
Yeah.
And faithful Catholics created a rebellion against this, a resistance, and they were held under the banner of Christ the King, and that's why they became known as the Cristeros. Yeah. And this movie shows that battle and shows how these people who are poor farmers or just businessmen who believed in something more powerful than a government and stood up for their faith were able to basically fight an entire country's army to a standstill to guarantee freedom of religion. It's a really powerful thing.
And I'll tell you right now, you do not want to stand against the faith of the Mexican people. Yeah. Because as children of Our Lady of Guadalupe, I've seen it firsthand over and over again in Southern California, all throughout Texas, in San Antonio. I mean, you see it, and then all throughout Mexico, the time that I've spent in, Mexicali and Tecate and Calexico and Mexico City, the time that we were down there. I mean, that expressive faith that is so rooted in the revelations of Our Lady of Guadalupe in 1531, you are not going to be able to kill the faith of that people.
When we went down to Our Lady of Guadalupe Shrine, most of the people we were with were looking at the tilma or praying. But I spent most of the time when I was there, I was most moved by the relics of St. Jose Sanchez del Rio, he was a young boy, I think 10, 11 years old, who fought in the Cristeros War, and he was martyred by the government in really pretty brutal fashion.
Brutal death.
Like they cut the bottoms of his feet. I mean, and they show this in the movie, and it's just absolutely. And the movie is gruesome, and it's way worse in real life.
Yeah.
So that's one that I was.
And that's another one that sears in your soul. Absolutely. That just stays with you. Yeah. And seeing that in that movie,
kid is so brave, so much braver than I could ever be.
Yeah, man.
Was that the kid whose relic was at the
shrine? Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Yeah. So if you go into the back left of the church, and I spent a lot of time venerating that, and that was really powerful.
That was a tremendous movie. I'm glad that that's on the list.
Just a plug too for all the listeners. A lot of people that we've taken down to Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico City, every time we take them down there, first timers, the one thing they say when they leave after having this amazing experience is, I can't believe how safe it is.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah,
I can't believe how safe this place is.
Mexico City is great. The people were awesome. The food was great. The accommodations were awesome. was a nice place to go.
So
I would take my
hospitable.
family there, no problem.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes with like all of the politics and the media coverage of like drug cartel and stuff like that.
I mean,
and these individual things. I mean, look at New York City. New York City gets a bad rap all the time.
Yeah.
But you know, New York City is a beautiful place to
Dude, you
visit.
can find a bad area in anywhere you
any
go.
city you
So,
go to.
Just
But-
a plug.
Yeah.
Just a plug.
No, that's
This is
an
brought to you
important
by
plug.
the Mexico City Tourism Board.
Yeah. They paid
wasn't.
us. No,
So
they
what's
didn't.
the next movie that you got on there?
So have you guys seen the movie? This was by Scorsese, Silence.
Oh, I've been wanting to watch that, dude.
So this was a crazy movie, right? So this is following a couple Jesuit missionaries who are going into Japan after Japan passed laws expelling all missionaries. And I won't give away the plot of the movie, but it does have a lot of historical parallels to the persecution of the missionaries and the native Christians of Japan. Some of the really crazy and very historically accurate things that they did. I mean, they were martyring Christians by the hundreds at a time, and the inquisitors of the Japanese government to find out if people were actually Christians. The methods they went to were brutal and incredibly effective. They were putting people on crosses and putting them on the shore, and then as the tide would rise up, they would slowly drown. And there's this one scene in the movie where there's like 20 or so crosses or something like that, and the other ones had died, and there's this one guy left tied to this cross as the waves are pounding on him, and he's drowning, and he's still singing all these psalms. And I mean, it is an incredibly powerful testament, because when people think of martyrs, I don't think they really think of Japan. But Japan
There were
had
brutal martyrdoms there.
that was
for sure.
one of the as far as the imagination of the cruelty that goes into it.
Worse than Romans? Seriously.
Yes, it was
Really?
insane. It was so. I mean,
The Jesuits experienced great martyrdom stories and testimonies of just
man.
the suffering that they faced in all of their endeavors in the missionary field. I mean, it's striking.
yeah. This movie shows one of the things they do. There was in Japan at the time. There's a thing called the Fumi stone, and a Fumi stone was a depiction of Jesus or Mary, or usually one side had a crucifix and the other side had Mary holding Jesus, and they would line people up and they would put the stone on the ground and they would say, walk on it. And people who weren't Christians would be like, okay, whatever. And they walk on it. And other people would just be like, no. And they'd pull them on the line and they would execute them because they would know then that if they wouldn't step on this Japanese Christian stepping stone, if they wouldn't step on an image, they knew they're Christian and they would kill them.
Wow.
Yeah. So this movie,
Crazy. This also is like on an apex of, like the whole apex of the movie is Apostasy, from what I
it
can
really
gather.
is.
Yeah.
It is about apostasy.
But this is Scorsese's, I think in his own treatment of the film, this was his lifelong work.
It took him like 20 years to get this
20
done.
years to get this done, and this was his passion. I mean, it's almost like Mark Twain's treatment of Joan of Arc.
Yeah.
It was like his lifetime accomplishment. I think Scorsese really treated this movie as one of his lifetime achievements.
It's a beautifully shot movie. It's got some great actors. It's got Andrew Garfield, who was in Spider-Man. It's got Adam Driver, who's in Star Wars, who's Kylo Ren. Liam Neeson, who's a great actor.
Don't you take my daughter.
People that I spoke to, their commentary was,
I don't know who you are, but I will hunt you down.
I will hunt you down. Don't you take my daughter.
but their commentary
He's
was
not that
driven
badass in this movie.
at
He's
the
awesome.
point of how disappointed they were in relationship to the apostasy of these characters. But what I appreciated about it, because I mean, I didn't watch it, I haven't watched it yet, but it shows the human element to evangelization and the limits that we have in relationship to that testimony and witness. And you have people that have the grace of Almighty God that endure such suffering, but even the fact that they were on the voyage and how far they went in relationship to that testimony of faith is absolutely encouraging, that they would battle in those places for that testimony to be proclaimed.
And the theme of these films too, suffering, right? I mean, like, why are we so excited and just like enthralled, or the impression upon us just invigorates us? It's through the suffering of people who, know that this is not our final destiny,
Right.
right? and the grace of God prevails within them in the face of this suffering.
Now, Silence has some kind of mixed messages. It's not a theologically super precise movie.
What? No conversions on the set? No, I'm just
right. But it does really. I think it's a really amazing vignette of a very important missionary time to a very important place that very few people think of as a Christian land that had so much Christian blood spilled on it. And really the Japanese missionaries, the Jesuit missionaries that went to Japan in the 15 and 1600s were some of the bravest and most brutally executed and martyred saints. I mean, and there's a lot of Japanese saints too.
Oh yeah.
And it's, again, even if the movie isn't 100% above the boards in its Catholicism and its adherence to kind of, hey, the heroes win, it's still really important as a period piece to look at.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
All right, so a couple other movies, and we could talk a little bit quicker on these, but I think any list of best Catholic movies that didn't include The Exorcist would be incomplete.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I saw The Exorcist, and when I was pretty young, probably younger than I should have been allowed to watch that, but, you know, I think I watched it because my parents went around.
Things happen.
Right.
It's like watching the Boogeyman when I was like 5 or 6 years old. That was intense.
Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, part 2. But seeing The Exorcist, and as a young kid, it gave me the impression of the battle of good and evil, and then it also gave me the impression of that just, you know, priests have this power, and it just never left me that, you know, the Catholic Church and through the ministerial priesthood of Jesus Christ, I mean, there is something to it that's just not there in other religions and other entities.
It's coming out even more now with exorcisms on the rise, and this Father Amorth on Netflix. This is a reality that people are very interested in.
I've got to say though, the one with Anthony Hopkins though, I mean, The Exorcist, that one like really stirred people up into a frenzy. The Exorcist, the original, right?
Yeah.
But the one with Anthony Hopkins,
The Right.
Was that what it was called?
Yeah, it's called The Right.
Yeah.
Man, that was phenomenal.
It was very good.
Anthony Hopkins makes a good,
Great movie,
priest.
and it was based on a true story and testimony of a young priest or whatever, you know, being formed and going over to Rome for this ministry. And I agree. Those movies are absolutely fascinating. The Exorcism of Emily Rose, one that stands out too. That was also powerful.
Was awesome,
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah.
Oh man, you would love that.
Yeah, and that comes down to like historical, documented kind of testimony.
There was a legal fight there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So have you guys seen Romero?
Oh yeah. Do you know Romero actually that was a part of my 8th grade experience of, so, you know, I'm a public school kid, athlete, really not into my faith at all. You know, the only reason I'm going to church is because my mom's making me go to church.
You like the MTV.
I was an MTV kid at that point, and Ren and Stimpy and all that stuff. Yeah. So, you know, like, but when I went to that 8th grade confirmation year, we had a great teacher.
And
the teacher was like, so basically, you know, my teacher he was teaching confirmation, and he used 2 movies during our year together, and one was on St. Valentine that hit me like a ton of bricks, and that's why I chose the name Valentine for confirmation. And the other movie was Romero, and I remember him getting shot behind the altar, and I was like, bro, like, what an amazing testimony of life. Yeah. What a powerful man of God. And that struck me as an apathetic kid who really didn't care. You know, I believed in God, I believed in Jesus, but I really didn't, like, it wasn't cool.
Yeah, that struck me. I thought of like martyrdom being the seed of Christian faith when you said that. Yeah. It's like there's something to be said for all of this suffering, right? And how it inspires us.
Yes.
You know? Like
it was like Valentine being thrown to the lions, you know, for the sake of the dignity of the sacrament of marriage. Yeah. You know, Romero really standing up in courage and faith to proclaim the truths of our Catholic faith in the face of a persecuting, you know, oppressive political power. Like what an amazing, inspiring offering. And he was just canonized recently.
He was. And, you know, Raul Julia, who plays St. Oscar Romero in the movie, did a great job. I mean, tremendous. Really excellent job. Mm-hmm. And the whole movie doesn't really do too much politicizing, you know, or whitewashing of the history. It's a pretty straightforward movie, and it's really If you haven't seen it, definitely watch it, especially with Oscar Romero just recently being canonized and elevated to sainthood.
It's worthwhile.
Really, it's an excellent movie.
Yeah,
so
for
go
sure.
watch that.
Definitely.
Another one kind of in that vein, and this one's maybe, I don't know how many people have actually seen this, but it was Molokai.
Yeah.
That was such a good movie. To me, that's my favorite movie ever about a saint.
I was there too. Like Molokai, the island of Molokai is it's narrowly inhabitable, right? Like you can't stay in a lot of places there. This was a place where they literally drove boats of lepers, dumped them off because of the reefs that surround this little like area. It's kind of like a flat area that jutted out from the largest sea cliffs in the world, right? So it's just like this small area, miles and miles of sea cliffs, small little area, right? Because of the reefs and everything that surround that, the boats couldn't get up there and just drop them off. So they just dumped them off of the boat.
In the water?
In the water.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
And so the survivors of this would eventually get ashore.
Oh, God bless.
Right now, there are 2 living lepers that live there. And God bless the state of Hawaii. They have not at all, like, they have respected and honored and dignified what has gone on
gorgeous.
there. And they said, look, we're not doing anything to this place. We're going to let these people die in dignity.
Wow.
And then we'll make it like a park with, a shrine and things like that. So, I mean, like that whole story. I mean, he's a Belgian guy.
So for people who don't know what it's about, so it's about Saint Damien of Molokai.
And I was going to ask you,
That might be
Sheila,
good to explain,
Yeah,
too.
like what was so impressive? Because you said this is your favorite movie of a saint. Like, what was the things that you drew from it that made it your favorite as opposed to any other of
It's not overly mythologized, and it is very salt of the earth. It is very
tangible.
It's tangible.
Gritty.
It's not.
Meaning like the sanctity of a saint, like what a saint is.
Yeah, it's a very realistic representation of a saint as an actual living historical person. Not, I'm all about the miraculous. I love the Golden Legend. I love the Lives of the Saints by Alban Butler. But this one really struck me because he was such a just salt of the earth priest. I volunteer, I go. And so Saint Damien of Molokai, he was a Belgian priest. And he volunteered to go to Hawaii and minister to a leper colony.
Like 10, 15,000 miles away. How did he even get there? Anyways.
Right. And it was a death sentence, and he knew it. Because if you go around at this time barring lepers, you're going to get it. But he just knew that these people need ministered to. They need the sacraments, especially these people who are living on this island in a very resolute way because they were outcast and they were just waiting around to die. So they were drinking and fornicating. When he first got there, there was almost like a tribal breakdown society. It's just people waiting around to die. And he gave them hope, and he ministered to people who were deformed and ugly and dying. And it was incredibly Christ-like, but also incredibly ordinary. And one of my favorite things is just, like Chesterton said, the most extraordinary thing is an ordinary man. And this really captures that.
I love the fact that in the same vein, they depicted his anger, like his human anger and his own frailty, and you see that he's trying to work on that reality in respect to going to confession to the bishop that's in the boat above him, and he's like screaming at them
because the bishop wouldn't go on there because he's like, I don't want to get.
I'm not going to go and get leprosy. So just to see the human element to
human elephant.
The elephant
Was
in
he
the room.
in the water?
The elephant in the room.
Elephants are good swimmers.
Saints are human.
Right.
And
That's
I
what this movie
agree
does.
because there is a lot of movies on saints that just kind of glorify them and they do not show the human element.
A lot of the movies about saints are the statue versions where they show us a pasty statue with blushed cheeks.
Yes.
And not the gritty, dirty, dealing with some pretty dark stuff, getting their head chopped off, real life saints.
Yeah.
There's this scene in Molokai where people are trying to discredit him. And because they were trying to just basically ruin his character. So they said that he was engaging in sexual activity with the women of the leper colony. So they made him come ashore and they said, well, we need to check your genitalia. And he's like, are you serious? You're really making me do this? And they're like, yes. And there's a way of humiliating him. And he just lifts up his thing. He's like, go ahead, look, I haven't done anything. And it was so like,
it's heartbreaking.
Even the lepers who are dying and suffering were still involved in, the persecution. I mean, like, you think, Damien of Molokai, he went there, and the lepers and everything. But it's like, no, the lepers, had their own little thing going on.
And then other lepers, they formed a church community there. And it was, so really, go watch that movie. It's on Amazon Prime. It's I think it's even available free on YouTube. It's
worthwhile for sure.
I was blown
I'm gonna
away by
watch
that
it.
movie.
Yeah. I need to rewatch it. It's been a little while since I've seen it.
Rewatch it?
Yeah, rewatch. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I'm gonna watch it again.
Watch again.
How about that?
So,
Ooh, how about that?
any other movies that you guys like that you want to mention? You want to throw out there?
Man of All Seasons.
Man for all seasons. Man for all
good.
seasons.
Yeah, that was a
really
great
good.
one.
Yeah, that's St. Thomas More.
Oh yeah.
He
Another one
happily
that was
went
the
to his
Padre
death.
Pio movie really struck me. St. Philip Neri was phenomenal. John Bosco.
We should put some of these links like in the
Yeah, we
show
can.
on YouTube.
Don
or
Bosco
whatever.
was awesome. That movie was very, very well done.
There was a movie done about the Spanish Civil War, and what was it called? It was There Be Dragons.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was the guy who played
Saint
Jose Maria Escrivá.
Yeah.
He was played by the guy who plays Daredevil on the Netflix Daredevil series. That was a really cool movie.
It was a great movie.
Yeah, really
I saw
cool
that
movie.
too.
Song of Bernadette.
Oh, that's one of the
mean,
classics.
That got some awards, right?
That one, I think, that in 1943,
Academy
that
Award?
won 4 Oscars. I mean, that's
Oscars,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, that won Best Picture or Best Actress, right?
Wow.
That's a great movie too, and it's a little bit. It's one of those movies that you watch when you're homesick and like your parents can't watch you, so they take you to grandparents' house. And your grandparents are like, "Here, sit on the couch and watch TBS or the Oldies channel," and you watch it, and you're like, "This is very old fashioned. This is very twee and sentimental."
But beautiful film.
But you're like, by the end of it, you're like, I loved this movie.
Yeah.
I felt that way about Chitty Chitty Bang Bang when I saw it the first time, man.
What about Angels with Dirty Faces?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that movie?
No.
Oh my gosh, that's a great one too.
Shoes of the Fisherman.
Shoes of the
with
Fisherman.
Anthony
I mentioned that
Quinn,
earlier.
yeah.
Keys of the Kingdom. Gregory Peck.
Yep.
There's
Scarlet and Black.
Scarlet and the Black. That's
a good movie.
excellent
Man,
movie.
I need to
Scarlet
start
and Black.
writing this stuff
That's
down.
all old school.
Yeah, that means
movies,
I can get it on the Amazons and the Netflix and stuff, so I can watch it. Because I can't. I got 6 kids. It's kind of hard to get out a lot.
There, Alec Guinness, the guy who played Obi-Wan Kenobi, he was in a movie that was written by G.K. Chesterton called Father Brown, and that was where he had his conversion and stuff. So that's
Is that the Father Brown from the literature?
What literature?
Like the Chesterton's book.
Yeah, no, Chesterton.
Brown, yeah.
That
Okay.
So
the
this-
literature.
The literature.
It's from the literature.
I think
you want me
I-
to just say
Did you check the literature?
The literature. It's in the literature, which I mean with the papers.
We need to just stop this episode right now. Seriously.
I think another movie everyone should go watch, and it got a lot of pushback, but it also, I think, blew the cap off a lot of things that maybe Hollywood wants you to see. That was Unplanned.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Unplanned really.
It was banned in Canada.
I mean, essentially banned
They
because
banned
movie
it.
theaters
Oh, I didn't
wouldn't
hear
show
that.
it, and the way that they run movie theaters, it wasn't
Banned.
explicitly banned. It was shadow banned, right?
I'm so glad that you brought that up, man. Yeah, what a phenomenal movie.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty brave movie, and they really stuck their neck out financially and from their careers.
They're doing good, though.
And they did a great movie too.
They're
I
doing
mean,
good.
it's not just a propaganda piece; it's a good movie with a good message. So
True story. You know, I mean, none of this stuff is like propagating. It's the actual story of a woman, who worked at Planned Parenthood. So
You guys ever see the movie Doubt?
That I have had on my list, and for some reason I haven't watched
Man,
it.
that was a really excellently done movie. That it's about the sexual abuse scandal, and it's set in the 60s when it was still kind of under wraps. And the whole movie is about looking back at the prism of what we understand now, and then how people were looking at it then, right? Noticing things and should they say things, and no one's really sure because that whole exploration of what those things were happening in the church back then wasn't really fully fleshed out like we understand it today. And the movie doesn't ever tell you explicitly whether or not this priest is actually a perpetrator of sexual assault.
Oh yeah, I saw that. It is very good.
Yeah, with Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah, it was really good.
Meryl Streep. I mean, and you never know.
They don't like it's the doubt literally that you have in the movie, and I think it's good too because in the wake of Spotlight or and all these other Spotlight was great. I really appreciate the news coming in and just unearthing this thing that has evolved.
Yeah, I'm all for go ahead and take your shots at the church. They've earned it. But this movie Doubt kind of cast you in that time, and if you were one of those people, would you have been able to notice anything?
Well,
would
that's
you have
really
been able to make
interesting,
that call?
Because I've had a ton of conversations with some of the older brothers, some of the old Irish guys that kind of lived through those periods of time, and I've also heard priests of the 70s and the 80s kind of criticize John Paul II for different reasons, and did he handle this properly? Did he not handle this properly? And coming down to a lot of the things that I've discovered is just that the church consulted to great extents regarding how they need to handle these situations. It's not like these guys were just, and maybe I'm not trying to say that some people didn't do it, but
a lot of them did,
but a number of them, they were consulting and trying to figure out how do we handle these situations of sexual abuse.
Because we don't want to
they did what was best practices.
I've got to watch
science.
this movie. I have not seen it yet. I need to watch it.
Philip Seymour Hoffman, it was an amazing actor, and he does a incredible job of at once being like, wow, this is a very trustworthy and good priest, and also this is a creepy ass priest.
Wow.
And you, depending on what mood you're in that day, you can see it as, wow, this guy was innocent and just a great priest, or wow, this guy's totally not right.
Yeah.
And it puts you in the perspective of this religious sister who was one of the teachers at the school, who's looking
watching
at it, watching it unfold and becoming really great movie. Yeah. And it's not a sugar-coated Catholic movie,
No, that's great.
All right, so we talked about a lot of, I guess, depressing movies and
suffering movies.
Where's the joy here?
All right, so we're gonna get to what I think we can say is the consensus is our favorite Catholic movie.
Hands down,
Nacho Libre.
Nacho!
Pound it, brother.
Pound it,
oh my gosh,
that is my favorite.
That was your best movie, man.
Quote out of my face.
Oh god!
If you have not seen Nacho Libre, you need to put that at the top of your list. Set in Mexico, like a Mexican monk that grew up in an orphanage, and he becomes a monk, much to his chagrin, but that's what it just circumstantially he becomes a monk.
So you guys know that was based on a real priest, right?
Yeah.
So there was a priest who was Father Sergio Benitez was a priest in Mexico. He just recently died.
Oh wow, God rest him.
Not too long ago, and. He had an orphanage, and he supported the orphanage by dressing up as a luchador, wearing a mask, and going up and dressing up as a wrestler, and participating in these wrestling matches. And the money that he'd earn, he would give to support this orphanage. And this movie,
a saint, the luchador saint.
Lord, if you make me win, I will give all of the money to the orphans.
Patron saint of luchadors.
The luchadors. Oh man, I love this movie.
Yeah, it's really good, and I love how.
My kids love it.
I love how cute they treat Catholicism. It's cute. It's like I would watch this with my grandma because it's just a very sentimental and it's just pretty innocent and it's.
And the human elements of living in community,
they're still real.
And it's so real. It's so relatable. I love it because people have these impressions of seminaries and communities, and guys
don't have impressions
and you really don't know. But they are they're human institutions. Yeah, we pray. We try to be as holy as we possibly can be. We strive for holiness. We strive for understanding and knowledge and wisdom. But there's also just very very, very human moments to live in community.
We throw elbows in basketball games.
Throw elbows in basketball games, or when the hurricane was hitting and you were throwing people out into the hurricane wind at St. Vincent's, And I mean, like there's human moments, and the way that this movie catches them are just so hilarious.
I love the scene where the kids are asking him if he's happy being a priest and not a wrestler, and he's like, listen, I know the wrestlers get all the fancy ladies and the clothes and the free creams and lotions. But life is really good.
It's really good.
I get to wake up every morning, 5 a.m., make some soup. It's the best. I love it.
I sleep in a bed by myself.
All of my life.
It's great.
Look, go away, read some books.
Go away.
And you can just tell he's so irritated. He's like really struggling with his like the grind of his vocation. It's such a funny movie. It's just a really approachable, happy Catholic movie.
Yeah, it really is. And Penelope Cruz is in it, and she plays. Isn't it Penelope Cruz?
No, I don't think
who
so.
plays
This
the
is
beautiful
total spoiler.
nun?
If you're listening,
but you still need to watch it. I've watched it a million times.
You should watch it several times.
Who is that? She's gorgeous. I thought it was Penelope Cruz.
It is.
Totally. So Penelope Cruz is in it. She's a beautiful nun, and she comes to teach the orphans.
Sister Concepcionista.
Sister Encarnacion.
No.
That is not Penelope Cruz. That is Ana de la Reguera.
Well, she looks like Penelope.
She looks like her.
Thank you, Delacroix.
Boom.
Thank you. But no, I mean, he falls in love with her, and then he's like, have you ever been in love with a nun? It's just like these brilliant one-liners all throughout the movie. If you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth your time.
Go to
it's
the theater
awesome.
or not.
Yeah. So
Definitely not.
before we roll out of here, why don't you tell everyone how they can get more from us, and I'll make sure that I post links to any of these movies that I could find.
Can I do it? He does it every time.
No,
Ryan
I want to do
Delacroix.
it. I want to look at the camera
before
and be
you
Father
do,
Rich right now.
Before you do, I'm going to put a list of all these movies so that people can go and look these up individually in the comments.
Yeah.
And Ryan, you should look at that camera.
Okay, I'll look at that camera.
I'm going to look at you while you're going to do it.
I'm taking your job
all right
right
you
now.
do it right now, Ryan.
Hey, everybody, you can watch our show on all these different things like Tweeters and Facebook and YouTubes and iPods and iPads. And then we have this thing called Patreon, and we use the money to buy drinks for the show and coffee and studio.
And to pay Howard.
But you can't see him. He's behind the camera.
Yeah.
So support the show so we can pay for this stuff.
We can make the soup for the orphans.
And we have to make the soup for the orphans. But you
We're the
said
orphans.
that we're on the same camera too, I think. Too. Yeah. But yeah, thanks for joining us on the show. And
Hold on, but we have an inquisition for him.
we have an inquisition.
Okay.
So I just did that. That was my first time.
Hey,
That was impressive.
Hey.
I actually added a little bit of Mexican,
Juno.
Yeah, Juno.
That was another movie, by the way, Juno.
It's a good movie.
That was
We're
also
done with the
very good.
movie. We could do this for 6 hours.
I'm just trying
These
to
people
avoid
have
the
jobs and
inquisitions.
stuff.
Yeah,
that
they
they're
got to
listening.
get to work. Their boss is like, "Are you still listening to this?"
Jeez.
There's
yeah.
one listener who says that, and I won't say who, but she's actually a religious sister who's the secretary for the bishop, and the bishop catches her watching our show all the
really?
time. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty good. Hi, sister.
Hello, sister.
Hi, sister.
Hello, sister.
Concepcionista.
Encarnacion.
Encarnacion. Concepcionista
All right.
of the Holy Spirit of Guadalupe.
Encarnacion.
So they're making a movie about the patron saint of handkerchiefs.
Oh.
Sadly, you get martyred, and you become, when they make a movie about you,
Boo-hoo.
you don't actually get martyred. You actually slip on one of your soggy handkerchiefs that you've been crying into.
And crack my head.
And you crack your own head. But you are
poetic.
You are martyred through witness because of your suffering nature, through empathetic crying for others.
Okay.
Who's playing you in that movie? Who's playing?
Ryan Delacroix.
I would gladly accept.
Would you be able to do it?
I just accepted for the closing for you.
Who do you think's playing Father Rich in the movie?
I'd take that job. Now, if you're looking for like some sort of superstar or something,
Yeah.
Tim Tebow.
Tim Tebow?
I don't know. Maybe Christian Bale.
No.
I'm totally cool with Christian Bale.
No, what's the dude who he was in 300, but then he kind of let himself
Gerard
go?
Butler.
Boom.
Bam. That's good too.
That's who you can.
Well, that's my boys.
He's gonna have
my
to
boys in
like,
San
he's
Diego
gonna have
say
to
that.
like beef up a little bit.
You mean like muscle?
Yeah,
muscle.
totally.
was,
Gerard-
man.
oh, yeah,
totally,
he's gonna have to.
totally.
Yeah. Gary Busey.
Gary Busey.
Howard's contribution was Gary Busey.
That's how Howard earns his money. All right, so
Thanks for
good
watching.
episode.
This is great, man.
So yeah, go out and visit us on all the
Listen
things that Ryan said, and
Yeah,
Especially the
come to
tweeters.
movies.
the tweeters and the Facebooks.
all
and
right.
the
So hey, I got something to play us
Instacarts.
out.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
See you next time, Catholic Talk Show.
Da, 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 da. Bum, 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 bum.